I see a lot of people saying that gritter arms are their favourite arm mod in Cyberpunk 2077. And why wouldn't they be? You can easily punch people to death with your bare hands, rip open doors, and smash through concrete walls. For all intents and purposes, these arms turn you into the Incredible Hulk. But in order to complete your transformation from Bruce Banner fully, you're going to want to install the Berserk operating system. This is a temporary effect, much like the Sandevistan, though this is more focused on delivering increased damage, greater focus with ranged weapons, and what at first would seem like its coolest feature, the superhero landing. There are 4 main models of Berserk in the game, with different tiered versions of each available. Today I'm going to be testing the best of each within the same combat scenario, a gig called The Lord Giveth and Taketh Away, over in Wellsprings Haywood. The same gig we used to test the Sandevistans. This will allow us to establish the pros and cons of each model before deciding, once and for all, which is best. Let's get into it. At number 4 is the Biodyne Mark IV. This can be purchased from the Ripperdoc in Japantown. Now, this is a decent entry by all means, reducing weapon recoil and sway by 25%, which is the highest in the whole game. It only offers a 5% melee increase though, which isn't so good if you're planning on going hand to hand. Leaning more into the ranged attacks again, it increases them by 20%, and defeating an enemy will restore 4% maximum health, which is a little useful, I suppose. The main reason this is sitting at the bottom though is the cooldown time of 1 minute, whilst the effect itself only lasts 30 seconds. I've reduced the cooldown with mods, though this can only be done to a maximum of 21 seconds, or I suppose a little more if you install the bioconductor, maybe 30 seconds or something. 40 seconds is still a long time to wait in the heat of battle. At the same time, if you use all of your mods on cooldown reduction, you sacrifice things like beast mode, which will make a much more significant impact on your berserk usage. I feel the shorter cooldowns on Sandevistans are a lot more forgiving, and the cooldowns for berserk are going to be a recurring issue for me in this video, to be honest. What's more, this berserk requires you to have 16 body in order to use it. Now that's quite an ask for what you get from it, and I'm not really sure it's worth it. There's definitely an edge you get, especially with mainly using weapons, but if I were trying to incorporate berserk into my build, there's definitely better ones to choose than this. This leads me on to the Militech Mark III, which can be bought from downtown city centre. This is sitting at number 3 primarily due to the significantly lower body required to use it. At a much more modest 12 body, you can use this for a greater duration of your playthrough. It's also a better all-rounder with a 10% reduction in recoil and sway and an entire 15% extra melee damage. The duration and cooldown is the same as the Biodyne, 30 seconds and 60 seconds respectively, which again is not ideal. You do gain 20% more health whilst this one is active though, which is pretty good. The bonus health effects are a lot more noticeable to me personally than those bestowed by the Biodyne, though in fairness that may be simply down to my playstyle of charging in with no fucks given. I also want to talk about this superhero landing for a second. Now when I read about it I thought awesome. Brilliant, great. I pictured something out of Iron Man, a ginormous shockwave with devastating effects. This feels a little lackluster and clunky, to be honest. I'm not really a fan of how you appear to enter a quick time event, which completely seizes control from me for a second. I just wish it were more fluid. What's more, you better hope the ground on which you land is perfectly even, else your landing probably won't even affect nearby enemies. This time around was probably one of my best uses of this feature, but far from the giant shockwave I'd envisioned. Instead, I got, well, this. I think I'll stick to the Sandevistan for feelings of awesomeness, to be honest. Onto one of the 2 Berserks, which I really think might actually be worth having. The Militech Mark V is a legendary iconic offering a very balanced 15% on recoil, sway, and melee damage, as well as a 40% boost to both health and stamina when activated. It can be purchased from Nina Kraviz, our secret DJ Ripperdoc, over in Charter Hill, Westbrook. One of my favourite things about this Berserk though has to be the 60-second duration, which actually makes it ideal for smaller street corner fights. 1 minute is more than enough to dispatch between 5 and 8 goons, and the bonuses offered by this Berserk are going to be handy with achieving that. A downside to this is that you need 18 body, which is the highest requirement on this list, and to be honest, when you're that late into the game, I imagine most players will opt for some different, more interesting form of cyberware. Still, if you're hellbent on using the Berserk, this one wins out in terms of smaller fights, definitely. But at number 1, after careful consideration, it's gotta be the Zetatech Mark V. You can buy this from the Ripperdoc Robert/Dr. Chrome. It will give you a 20% reduction on recoil and sway, and a 20% increase on melee damage, which is far more noticeable than most. You also restore 5% max health for each enemy killed, and get a 10% increase on armor and resistances. Where this Berserk really wins the competition though is in cooldown time. At a base cooldown of 30 seconds, this has far more versatility within the average fight, and is the only Berserk on this list assist that can actually be chained. Of course, 30 seconds can be reduced with mods and the bioconductor, though as I mentioned earlier, I really wouldn't use up all those slots on chain Berserk like I did. A big issue with doing this is that Berserk is an inherently underpowered ability. It gives some basic stat boost, sure, but unlike the Sandevistan and Cyberdeck, it doesn't seem to really assist you as a player in any particularly noticeable way. That superhero landing could even be a hindrance, to be honest, as it seems to activate every time you want to double jump, causing you to accidentally immobilize yourself in combat and take shit tons of damage. The general perks bestowed by Berserk aren't bad by any means, but after running all the top Berserks and all the top Sandevistans in the same combat scenario, I find it very hard to argue why anyone would pick Berserk over the Sandevistan, unless you're going for a very specific and maybe canonically restricted build. But there you have it, my ranking for the top Berserks in the game for anybody inclined to use this underpowered Sandevistan alternative. Do you actually like Berserk as an operating system? If so, tell me why down in the comments below. As previous videos have shown, I'm open to people calling me out on elements I've missed, and hell, it helps me make more detailed and better content, so please, let me know. If you enjoyed this video and it helped you out, whether that's in deciding which Berserk to use or warding you away from this system entirely, then don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing to stay up to date on more videos like this. Once I hit 1,000 subs, I'll be able to dedicate even more time to delivering quality content on this channel, so any help towards that goal is greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching. I'm Sam Brown, and I'll see you in another video.